Gentlemen,
Hello.
we are here on what appears to be a semi-sunny day in our fair city.
Oh, together, one more time.
One more time?
Yep.
Yeah, all together, and then who knows where the fuck you're going to be.
I literally do not know the next city I'm heading to, but I'll know probably sometime this week.
I could be a city near you.
Is it possible you could be here next week? I'm just curious.
Maybe. Yeah, unlikely.
Uncle Mark was fired from everything.
That's right.
I've had a change, and it's a good thing. And
Yes,
we're going to make it a wonderful thing.
Hurrah.
And change, we love change. That's why we've numbered this show one higher than last week.
Yes.
We like to do that.
Yeah.
Let's go backwards next time, though.
Done. So what are we talking about today, guys?
Well, I am going to I'm going to talk about religion. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's this thing that we talk about, and how it responds when the new shit comes around.
Oh, so probably just fine.
Yeah.
Everything's going to go
Yeah.
well.
Happy stories.
You can skip the segment. You don't even need to. And then you got a thing, Doug?
Yeah, I'm gonna update 3 stories we've covered previously that have some things that have some twists and turns that have happened in the past few months,
It's
weeks,
like
and
a
hours.
goddamn water park of sludge.
Yep, indeed.
And I have a book report, and it is silly. So don't worry, I'm not going to scare you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So please come and enjoy episode 129, and don't forget that your uncles
The 3 we
have merch. We have merchandise at the Heretique. Go there, get some stuff. Doug's wearing it now.
I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fantastic, and we've been really enjoyed seeing your beautiful bodies and homes adorned.
Yeah,
Yes.
send us photos.
Yeah,
We'd love
send
to see
photos.
them.
It's terrific. We love seeing it out there, and the first time I see one live in the wild, I'm going to scream.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So
Be the first to make me scream in public, like a girl when the Beatles came to town.
right.
Right? So get some merch. Enjoy the show.
Here we go.
Uncle Doug,
Uncle Mark.
you know, there was a time before. There was a time in history when I feel like, and I don't want anybody to freak out about this, I feel like religion got some things wrong.
Whoa.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a controversial statement on this podcast.
It's pretty. I know, but just hear me out. But I think that time is over.
Well,
Yeah, do you guys disagree?
that's very clearly true.
Yeah,
No. Listen, guys. On
Smooth sailing for religion.
Yeah.
this, from here on out, right?
yeah. Starting now.
Start. Now.
Yeah.
Nope,
Wait.
now.
No. Okay. No, you're right, though, that on this podcast, Uncle Mark, we beat up on religion a lot.
Yeah.
And we point out the ridiculous claims in their foundational texts. We accuse religions and their believers of hypocrisy, bigotry, and hatred. Mm-hmm. Hell, sometimes we're mean about their clothes.
Yeah, it's true.
Incidentally, I did see some Mennonite women in a coffee shop here in Salt Lake the other day.
Really?
That was really weird. That is not a usual thing
This is
here.
not Mennonite country. No.
So, anyway, we pick on them in a lot of ways for their pasts, for dogmas and traditions that often date back centuries or millennia. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fair. We don't live in the past. We live now. So it's reasonable to expect people to update themselves once they are privy to the new shit. But that's the thing, isn't it? Dogma is tricky/impossible to update. For an atheist, all one needs to overcome in order to get better, in order to get better, more accurate, up-to-date thinking, is one's own biases. Which that's no easy task, but doable. But for a believer, they have to overcome the notion that God says that the opposite is true. Mm-hmm. So when a mild-mannered English dude with a bowler hat and a Dumbledore beard comes back from a long trip to South America and says that species can change over time to better fit their environment, everybody loses their goddamn mind. But it's the believers who, almost 200 years later, are still screaming that they ain't condescended for no monkeys.
Yeah.
Or when women are finally empowered enough in society that they start demanding equity in treatment, or gay folks start getting all uppity and insist that they're people too, and maybe they can just love whoever they want to, and it makes sense that believers struggle with that. Their book says that's not okay. They've known these things for millennia.
Yeah.
But that's an example of when good science directly contradicts a religious mythos. Mm-hmm. I get why that would be such a mind fuck for these people.
Right.
That makes sense to me. But what about what happens when science comes up with something new? Something nobody's ever thought of before?
It occasionally does.
Okay. On occasion, that happens.
I just Diet Dr. Pepper just comes to mind. Thank you, science.
Which I think all religions can agree is a terrible thing.
Yes.
When there's no dogma to worry about, there aren't any edicts from any ancient rabbis or popes to contend with, no scriptures on the subject or traditions to follow. How do the religions do then? Anybody want to guess?
Poorly.
I've chosen 3 different issues.
Is it a pass-fail, or is it...
It's just a fail.
Yeah, they're just auditing the class.
Yeah, exactly. When I've chosen 3 different issues that religions have weighed in on in the last few decades to see how they've done. It's, well, if you've ever listened to this show before, you know that it's not going to go great.
Yeah.
So
Good time to turn off the podcast if you were being hopeful.
yeah, exactly.
They got something right.
Issue 1. In vitro fertilization.
The creation of life. Man playing God.
Yes, exactly.
Very often time for Christians having fertility problems.
Right, exactly. So for those who don't know, IVF is a procedure that was first successfully done in the late 70s, 1970s that is, but has been available broadly since the 80s. Briefly, it's the process of harvesting eggs from a woman and sperm from a man and doing the whole fertilization thing in a lab. And then the embryo or embryos that are created are implanted into a woman. It's often multiple embryos to improve the odds that something will take. And bing, bang, boom, baby.
Yeah, I know more than a couple human beings who have been created just so.
Yep. Indeed.
Yeah.
What a terrible thing for them.
They don't have a soul.
We'll get to that. We'll get to it.
Like a ginger.
Right, exactly. It's an amazing technology for people who really want kids, but like the roughly 10% of couples are experiencing some form of infertility. Great, right? And since nobody really knew how human generation actually worked until about the early 1800s, the Bible and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita don't say shit about the subject. As a matter of fact, for 2,000 years, the best theory anybody had for how human babies were made was Aristotle's, which, if you've ever read any Aristotle, you know he got most things wrong. Got a few things right, got most things very wrong.
I'm going to disagree with you one little bit. The Bible does have something to say about artificial insemination. Immaculate conception.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to some of the things the Bible does say.
Okay, great.
But it doesn't say anything about in vitro specifically. Because as I was saying, for 2,000 years, the best thing we had was Aristotle, who said that basically the man injected the person into the woman, and her body just fed it until it was ready to live on its own.
A sperm was just a little tiny person.
It's a homunculus.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea that the woman even contributed at all to the makeup of the new person didn't really come around until the 1600s and was pretty controversial until the 1800s.
So woman just provided room and board.
Basically, yeah. That's all it was. She was a vessel.
Yeah.
And she fed it.
So so a man's sperm is a bunch of little tiny men and little tiny women.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just whatever it is. You put it in there. It's just one. A lot of the time they didn't think a bunch of little tiny. It was just one.
You know what? You guys are overthinking this.
Right.
It's a fucking miracle. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Enough said indeed. So, considering the fact that
Sorry, I just imagined you two as Sarah and Bristol Palin sitting there having a conversation about where babies come from. Yeah, just like a little man or a little woman. That's what it is. Yeah.
According to them, babies come from wine coolers.
Yeah, this is the level of Christian sex education.
Yeah, exactly. So, considering the fact that one of the Abrahamic gods' first edicts was to, quote, be fruitful and multiply, you'd think they'd be super stoked about this new bit of tech, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
What are you, new?
Yeah.
Obviously, a whole bunch of religious people rejected it out of hand.
Yeah, of course.
Not everybody, mind you, but so many.
Yeah, they were called test tube babies.
Right, exactly.
And God had been taken out of the process, right?
Right. So let's just say that they got creative about the why of the thing. The Catholic Church issued a report in '87 which basically said, among a bunch of other nonsense,
When you say the Catholic Church issued a report, everything that comes after that is going to be terrible.
silly
Of
and
course.
stupid.
Yeah.
But they got real special on this one.
Okay.
Because among a bunch of nonsense, they included the idea that everyone has the right to be conceived through good old-fashioned fucking.
The right?
The right.
Okay.
It is a right. Because when I think about my own origin, what I want to imagine is mom and dad in flagrante.
I know.
Oh, God.
That's my right, God damn it.
And technically, can you have a right before you exist?
Shut your fucking mouth. It's your right after the fact to have had that thing.
Okay.
It's an ex post fact, pre facto. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't,
We need to get Andrew Torres in on this.
Right. Uncle Mark's brain is now smoking.
It is.
It's an ipsocoitus. Ipsocoitus.
Eventually, the geniuses over at the Holy See decided that in vitro was acceptable, but only if, and there are a few only ifs.
Yeah.
Only if no spare embryos were created, because that's a person, you know.
Uh-huh.
Why do they believe that? They just do! Also, no third parties may be used. So, if the man's little tadpoles ain't swimming, or the woman isn't laying good eggs, or even if they both contributed their DNA just fine, but they needed to have another woman carry
Surrogate,
it,
yeah.
hell no. Literally, Pope Pius XII said that using a third person was, quote, mechanical adultery.
Oh, my fucking God.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Mechanical adultery sounds like a prog rock band.
Right?
I did not see that one coming.
There's a bunch that I didn't see coming. But the thing is that what they have to do is take the new idea and apply all of the old ideas to it
and
see how it plays out in their brains.
Run it back through the fucking papyri.
Yeah, exactly. See what comes out.
It's like
Bury
we
it in a jar by the Red Sea for 1,000 years and pull it out and see what it says.
It's like we always say, when all you've got is a hammer, make lemonade.
Here's a fun objection. IVF requires a man's sperm. And how do we get a man's sperm?
Oh, God.
Well,
no.
they can insert a needle into the testicles to collect it. But that's the stupidest thing any of us have ever heard.
That's probably also in ex vitro homosexuality.
Right?
Right.
So the
Letting
obvious...
a man put a needle in your balls. I mean,
Right. So the
doesn't love
obvious
that?
choice is onanism, the terrible and delightfully fun sin of masturbation. But in the every sperm is sacred world of Catholicism, that's a big problem.
oh, my God.
Also, Catholics say IVF is only okay if it doesn't lead the couple to stop fucking. Seriously, even though they are adamant that the reason for sex is procreation, and these couples are often incapable of that, they are still really concerned that the couples be sure to go through those motions.
This is like the Catholic Church as a giant computer in the old Star Trek, and James T. Kirk has given it a conundrum it cannot solve.
Right.
This is the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, it's the Kobayashi Maru. It is just spitting out berserk nonsense.
This
Right,
is
right.
what happens when you insist that only virgins get to make the rules of your church.
I was going to say, like, being lectured on sex by an octogenarian virgin
Yeah.
is just
you know what, Catholic Church, just say you don't like it because you don't like it.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is not working.
This is not it.
This is not going to hold up.
Yeah. Other Christians have made other weird edicts and arguments about IVF. For instance, they argue that it's unnatural and therefore goes against God. It's God's will if a couple is supposed to have a baby. You don't get to decide that. So this is the other side of the quiverful coin, where the idea is that you can't have birth control because it's not your choice how many kids to have. It's God's, and maybe he's just going to fuck with you.
Yeah.
So that's his right. So you don't get that right. The Mormons, our fair religion of origin,
Yeah.
take a typically bullshit approach. You guys won't be surprised about this, saying that IVF is okay, but they really don't want you to do it if there's a third party involved. I mean, it's up to you and everything, but we're pretty sure it would make you a bad person. But, you know, you do it if you think it's right, I guess.
Yeah, they managed to both not really come up with an answer, but still make you feel guilty either way.
Yeah.
Because especially when we were young, there was nothing more shameful than a childless married couple.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
truly.
you would think that Mormons would be thrilled by the science making it possible to have children.
Yeah.
Mormon families are typically fairly large.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like their abortion or birth control stance, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no.
We're not specifically against it. We haven't written any official documents saying you can't do it, but
it's a cowardly way out.
it really is.
Yeah.
And we'll encounter more of that later.
Okay.
Methodists and Church of England were a little more liberal about the whole IVF thing. Their main sticking point is what is done with any extra embryos that are created. They have a bizarre 14-day grace period where you can do anything you want to an embryo. Why is that a question? Well, let's move on to our next topic, stem cell research.
Yes.
There are lots of kinds of stem cells, but by far the most promising are those from embryos. Embryonic stem cells are basically blank cells that can become any kind of material in a human body. Research suggests that these might be the key to treating a whole host of ailments, including macular degeneration, spinal cord injury, stroke, burns, heart disease, diabetes, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. What could be more amazing than the fact that we can make a cure with our bodies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are derived from those tiny little balls of cells that all the religious folk have convinced themselves are definitely 100%, no doubt in their minds, humans.
Yeah.
Complete with souls and everything. Why do they think this? They made it up. They had to pick a moment when humanity begins, and they chose that one. The moment when it looks like a collection of bubbles.
Yeah.
That's a person with rights.
It looks no different than any other embryonic tissue of any other animal.
Exactly. And it looks only because science has provided microscopes with which to see it.
Right.
The eyeball with which to see it.
Yeah, you can't even... Yeah, exactly. It is utterly invisible until you look through a series of glass lenses.
This thing that I can't see and didn't know existed until science showed it to me is now of major concern to me in my faith.
It is fuck that. It's a person, Doug.
Yeah.
That is a human being with a soul.
That is somebody eligible for the death penalty, motherfucker.
That's right.
So back up. And, I wonder how many of these screamy Christians, and probably not just Christians, who are screamy about stem cell research, get super, super quiet when the doctor tells them, well, there is one possible treatment for this.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right? Yep. All of a sudden, that radio station goes off the air.
Yeah, we're gonna start to see more and more actual, like it hasn't borne all the fruit, all that much fruit.
But
yet.
there are stem cell treatments going on now, right?
It's happening now,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are misusing stem cells, which is bizarre. They're like there are quacks that just inject stem cells into people and claim that they're gonna, but there are definitely good treatments out there and more to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming that it's not banned because we're now becoming a theocracy in the United States of America.
Yeah.
So, no, it's a big no for most religious people. In spite of the fact that this kind of research might lead to the cure of countless human horrors, it's just not worth murdering that beautiful tiny blob person.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the Bible is decidedly in another corner on this point, with God providing a recipe for the black magic abortion of a baby made in adultery in Numbers 5, and rules about punishment for accidental abortion versus accidental murder in Exodus 21. We see that at least Old Testament God definitely did not see a womb-bound spawn as the same as a person.
And remember, for American Christians, Old Testament God is the only one that matters.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well. So, let's move on to the third idea that I wanted to talk about, which is medical marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Ganja wasn't available to the Bronze Age Middle Easterners who created the scriptures, so there's no specific scriptural reference to guide us on it. As a precedent, the first time Europeans saw somebody smoke tobacco, they threw him in jail for witchcraft. but they took to it pretty good after that, and never really had a religious objection since. Incidentally, by the time that guy was let out of prison, 5 years later, everybody was smoking. And
He went for 5 years?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So there are, so I did say that.
It must have been black.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Nope, he was a white guy. Anyway, one of Columbus's dudes.
Oh.
Yeah. So what's the word on the wacky weed? Well, unlike tobacco, marijuana seems to have actual powerful medicinal applications. It can be used genuinely to help people who are in extreme amounts of pain or emotional distress. So obviously,
Bad.
the religion's rejected.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Catholics, no. Orthodox Christians, no. Rastafari, well, that doesn't count. But the Mormonism, let's talk about that for a second. A year or two ago, as you two will recall, Utah voters passed an initiative to legalize medical marijuana. It passed by a pretty decent margin in a state that's over 50% Mormon.
I think we were all quite surprised by that.
Yeah, it was a big.
Yeah. Now, the church itself grumbled, but not really out loud. It was more of a geriatric groan that emanated from downtown Salt Lake City and wafted over the state like a putrid gas.
Yeah.
Then, the state legislature, a wholly owned and operated subsidiary of LDS Inc., went to work basically nullifying the will of the people and watering down the law to within an inch of its life.
For the second time that year.
And making it as difficult as they possibly could make it to actually qualify for and get the stuff.
Yeah.
So, even though the church didn't really say anything, the message was somehow loud and clear?
Well, I did hear church officials on the Radio West program that we have been on, Dan.
Yes, indeed.
Church officials one morning, Mormons who believe that Jews came here 3,000 years ago in wooden submarines,
Yes.
saying that they could not really accept it because the science was still out. CBD.
Fuck off.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point, right? Because all of these bastards turn to science regularly
Right.
when it's convenient.
Yes, in the moments that it provides any sort of backup for what they're talking about. And to those people, I'd say, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck
I mean,
up.
could we make a deal? From the day your book was finished, whatever that book was, we won't poke at it, we won't futz with it, but everything that happened from that day forward, you don't get to have an opinion on.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
And because the crafting of their opinions is, though they will claim to high heaven that it's not, almost entirely arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's based on a couple of rules that don't really apply, and then just extrapolation and guesswork.
Yeah.
So fuck you.
Yeah. Shut the fuck up.
Like in the biggest possible language.
Especially when you are, in all those cases, these busybodies, naysayers, are causing people to suffer.
Yeah.
Stem cells, medical marijuana, in vitro. If someone wants to have a baby and just by bad fucking luck, their shit doesn't work,
Yeah.
well, how's it your fucking business to tell
Right.
them they can't?
Right.
Bad luck or bad design.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, but that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
God made you this way. God obviously didn't want you to have babies.
I know. But,
Why are you tricking him?
But the frustrating thing is, okay, fine, God made us. Then he made the brains of the people who came up with this stuff.
Right.
He made the fucking marijuana.
Well, now,
Right?
now you're into rabbinical territory, where the rabbis are always so good at well, if God didn't want us to do it, why did he make a workaround?
Yeah.
Why
right.
did he make us capable
I-
of coming up with the new shit?
if you're in your heart of hearts, you seriously believe that Native Americans are descended from Jews, and you think science has something to back up an opinion you have about trans people, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get to use that yardstick.
You don't get to pick and choose. Science just is what it is. You pick and choose your own holy books, what you want to use out of them, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not how science works.
Yeah.
You take it all.
Yeah, and especially if it can help other people, your fellow humans who are suffering and in pain, or who are emotionally devastated that they can't reproduce, or who are in some way in need, and you're gonna fucking tell them no because you don't like masturbation?
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Exactly. Yeah. Fuck you, Pope, whoever.
Stop getting...
That just applies to all of them.
Stop getting everything wrong.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, that was a cheerful update.
Yes, indeed. Enjoy all of that, everybody. Religion stupid. Bye.
Bye.